Whether you're brand new to the game or you just really enjoy playing the Theme Deck format, I bring you these Theme Deck Tuesday videos every single week, so make sure you subscribe to my channel down below, as this week we're going to be reviewing the Cinderace Theme Deck, as well as showing it off in some matches. Also, if you give the video a like, as it really helps me out and shows your support on the channel. Getting right into the review of the Cinderace Theme Deck here. It is a pretty straightforward theme deck overall in terms of the attacks and overall strategies that you're going to be carrying out when you play this deck. So we'll start it off by looking at the Cinderace itself, of course, as always. It has the Flame Cloak attack for 1 energy, does deal 40 damage, and you get to attach a fire energy card from your discard pile to this Pokemon, which combos nicely with the second attack, Bright Flame, for 3 energy, deals 160 damage. Then you flip a coin. If it's tails, you have to discard 2 energy from this Pokemon, which is definitely not ideal, as you kind of have to work around this, but for the most part dealing 160 damage is very respectable and reasonable numbers. You're not going to knock out every stage 2 Pokemon that's in Theme Deck format, but it is definitely up there and can be well respected for sure. And the 170 HP is very good as well on a stage 2 Pokemon. Now looking at the other highlighted Pokemon that's going to be a focus of the deck, getting early knockouts is Drampa here. For 2 colourless energy, you'd get to deal 80 damage. Now the downside is you have to discard the top 2 cards of your deck, but you gotta look at this like you have a lot of useless cards in a theme deck, most of those being excess energy, so you're going to be ending up discarding those, and it overall actually helps you because you're improving the consistency of your deck by thinning the deck with this attack. And doing that 80 damage early on is very efficient when people are typically going to be sitting passively drawing cards with their Pokemon, so very powerful attacker there. We also have the Double as a non-fire type, so when you go up against a water matchup you can use this or the Drampa, as it does have an attack for 3 energy which deals 120 damage, which is usually enough to get a knockout on all of the stage 1 or below Pokemon, and it does help you out in that sense. The other supporting Pokemon here is the Sudowoodo. We've seen this in lots of other theme decks, being able to use double draw to draw 2 cards, and then it does have Flail, which can sometimes be useful. We won't look at it in much depth, and that's mainly because we don't use it all that often, but we do also have a Ninetales, which can deal 70 damage for 2 energy. Now moving into the trainer cards, we don't have the best of lineups, but we do actually have some decent consistency here, as we have a total of 4, that's right, count them, 4 Great Balls. I think that's the most consistent, like just the only time that I've ever seen a theme deck actually have a full playset of an item that actually allows you to search for things. I mean, sure, it's not fully searching your deck, you only get to look at the top 7 cards for Pokemon, but the fact that you have 4 of them is definitely going to help you out in order to get those Cinderace into play, and those also combo nicely with the Pokekid that we have in order to guarantee whatever Pokemon it is that we want out of the deck. Now to go along with those, we also have Professor's Research and Hop to draw 3 out of our deck, and we even have the Bead for some energy acceleration. If we fall behind a little bit, then this is great to get back into the prize exchange or just building up a bunch of energy in the early game. And to go along and find our supporters, we have some Pokegear, which is nice, and like I said, that just finds us our supporters, looks at the top 7. We even have a couple of copies of Pokemon Catcher, which you used to see a lot in the old theme decks and we haven't seen for a while, but it's actually a reasonable card. If you can get ahead, then bringing up a big attacker that your opponent is building up on the bench and knocking it out before your opponent is able to use it can be really crucial to swing a matchup in your favour. And lastly, we have the Ordinary Rod, which we can use to recycle our Pokemon and energy. So yeah, really straightforward match ups, like I said, and overall strategy is pretty much going to be either drawing cards with Scorbunny early game to get towards our Cinderace, or just swinging as quickly as possible with the Drampa while we build up the Cinderace in the back so that we can get some finishing knockouts. And typically that's going to win you games because you're dealing 80 damage, so you're knocking out basic and stage 1 Pokemon before your opponent is able to get any of their stage 2s set up, and that's a very strong strategy in the Theme Deck format. Let's get into the matches and see how we get on. Be sure to let me know your thoughts on the deck if you played it or if you enjoyed the video. Jumping right into our first game here, we do have the Drampa start, and we are going first, so we do get that early attachment down. We can also go for the Great Ball and Pokegear here. I'll start off with the Great Ball, see what Pokemon we can come up with. We do get ourselves the Scorbunny, so that's an excellent pickup there. Hopefully get into the evolution lines coming up, and I will play out the Pokegear here as well so that we get a supporter and put in the deck with that for these coming top deck turns. I mean, we do have Hop and Pokekid for these following turns, so it should be pretty good. And we also have B if we want to attach onto the Scorbunny. Now we are up against another Fire Theme Deck, which is the Relentless Flame Charizard deck, one of the best theme decks as you will have seen in some of my previous videos. And they are starting off pretty strong. They have the Farfetch'd in the active spot, as well as getting that Ponyta down, but it looks like they are going to be attaching onto the bench for some reason rather than the Farfetch'd. So they're not going to bother picking it onto the Farfetch'd because we are going to be able to get the knockout here with our Drampa, and that makes total sense as they don't want to be wasting an energy, but I feel like the draw potential that they would have got there would have been worthwhile for them. So like I said, we are getting the knockout here. We do have to discard the top 2 cards of our deck. We can have a look here and see what we discarded though. Not really anything major, just the full picks as well as a fire energy here. So we'll have to see what my opponent has for us. They are promoting the Charmander, so they're just going to be sacrificing it from the looks of things and evolving up to a Charmeleon on the bench. They are going to be attaching onto the Charmander though, which is interesting. It does have a usable attack in Ember, which does 30 damage, and that could be good for softening us up and get a knockout on us later on with a different Pokemon. We do have the Nest Ball coming down, getting them another Nidoran, or Nidorino, and they are also going to be playing the Switch to go into that Nidorino and make it so that we have to take a knockout on it rather than knocking out their Charmander, which makes total sense to me. We do have the Pokemon Catcher. I think we'll play the Pokekid first so that we can guarantee ourselves a Pokemon here, and I will go and grab the stage 1 so that we can work towards that Cinderace. Makes all the sense to get Rabbit here. And we also have the Great Ball so we can dig for some more Pokemon. We get the Scorbunny, which is a nice pickup. Not super relevant right now, but could be useful. And I will be attaching onto the Rabbit. Let's go for the Pokemon Catcher, see if we can bring up one of my opponent's Charmanders, but unfortunately that's not going to happen. So we'll just take the knockout on their active instead, discarding 2 more cards off the top of our deck. And also taking a prize card here. Let's see what we discarded this time. A Drampa as well as another energy. So some energy hitting the discard pile. Not too major because it's only a couple, and we do have a lot of energy in the deck still. And we should hopefully be able to draw into that energy with Hop. My opponent did bring up the Rapidash, which is going to be hitting us for a little bit of damage as well as doing the burn damage, which is not appreciated at all. But we do have the Hop. That's a shame that we're not able to actually find any energy for the turn, so we're going to be missing out on our attachment. But we do have an attack for our opponent, not able to get a knockout, but we do have to discard 2 cards still. Getting rid of some Pokemon here from lots of things, as well as another Hop, which I'm not too bothered about since we do have the Professor's Research in our hand, which is going to be the main supporter we use here on this following turn in order to get the energy that we need. And my opponent does get the second energy down onto the Rapidash. That's going to then allow them to use the Agility attack and be able to deal 60 damage. The 60 damage isn't going to be quite enough as we will have 10 HP remaining, but if they flip ahead we won't be able to deal any damage to them. So let's see what they get. They do get the head, so they are going to be in vulnerable to any attack damage from us this turn, which is a little unfortunate. We will go for the Professor's Research anyways, so that we can see some more cards here, get some more energy. We do get into the switch, so I'm definitely going to be using that to go into our Pseudo Widow and draw some cards here. We do have the Willow that we can put down, so might as well make use of that. And we have another Pseudo Widow, which I will be putting into play just in case I want to make use of it. And now we can just draw a couple of cards. Nothing too major that we can make use of here, unfortunately. I may put the Vulpix down into play, as the Ninetales can be a fairly efficient attacker and something that we might want to go for, but certainly the agility on Rapidash is going to be putting in some major work, as it always does in every matchup whenever your opponent uses Rapidash, or when you yourself use Rapidash and you're playing that deck. It's always a fantastic attacker. You see here my opponent does have the Nidoqueen set up, so they're going to be able to search out any Pokemon, and also have the Charizard here, so if we want to put up a big attacker, then they can come in with the Charizard there. My opponent does choose to attack us, and they get the Tails, so we can actually get a knockout with a Pseudo Widow here, which is going to be good. And we'll go ahead, slap down that Vulpix, and we'll go and attach to the Cinderace before discarding the rest of our hand with our Professor's Research, and get into some more energy here. We do also get the Ordinary Rod, which is excellent for recovering some of our Pokemon and energy. But we will go for the knockout here, dealing over 60 damage, taking the third prize card of our game, and my opponent has yet to take a knockout. We do have some heavily damaged Pokemon. The Drampa still has only 10 HP remaining. It's going to be up to my opponent what they want to promote. They don't really have an attacker beyond the Charizard though. Sure, they could come in with the Nidoqueen, but they really want to protect that as much as possible, as it is the main way that they can actually get Pokemon set up at this stage. So my opponent is going to be using that Nidoqueen still. Queen's Call, searching for another Nidoqueen, and they're most likely going to be using the Roaring Resolve on Charizard here to get 2 energy onto itself and be able to take a knockout on our Pseudo Widow. I don't particularly mind that, as we do have our Cinderace here with Bright Flame being able to deal 160 damage, so we can take a knockout on this Charizard. And we also have a couple of backup attackers in the Drampa. But looks like my opponent's choosing not to do the Roaring Resolve and take a knockout here, so it's actually going to be on us if we want to knock them out with our Cinderace, which of course we certainly do, and it gives us an extra turn of getting energy attachments onto some of our Pokemon on the bench here. So I think I'm going to be putting it onto the... we'll put it onto Vulpix, I guess. The Dubwool that we have in the deck does have a higher attack cost, so I'll go for the Vulpix first, and we can also use the Pokekid here to search out our Ninetales as a solid attacker. And we have the switch, so I'm going to be switching into our Cinderace and using our Bright Flame to take a knockout on this Charizard here. 160 is more than enough damage than we need, and we even get a nice bonus of getting to keep our energy. As you do have to flip a coin. If it's tails, we would have had to discard 2, but we go heads, so I'm pretty happy with that. My opponent can come up with the Nidoqueen if they so desire, and that could deal a significant amount of damage, but it won't be enough to get a knockout here. They do have the second Nidoqueen. They did choose to promote the Charmander here with the single energy, and they're going to be going for the double Queen's Call here to search out 2 Pokemon, getting themselves a Farfetch'd. We'll have to see what the second Pokemon is that they get. They go for the Copycat though, putting the Farfetch'd back into the deck, which is a bit strange. Surely you would want to put that into play before using Copycat, or at least use Copycat first, but there we go, my opponent getting double heads on the Timer Ball and immediately choosing not to search out any evolution Pokemon, so you got to imagine they've got to be running out of Pokemon in their deck at this point. I'm pretty sure they do play something like a Brock's Grit, I believe, to shuffle things into the deck, so they could use that to get a Charizard back at some point. And we see here my opponent using another Queen's Call, but opting not to search out anything. And we're likely going to see an attack from my opponent here. We do just have a return knockout, even with the damage that they're dealing. Only doing 60 damage and we're able to get a knockout, and of course my opponent is going to concede. They are so far behind at that point. We're about to go down to one prize card remaining, and they hadn't even taken a first knockout yet, so very easy and convincing win for us with the amount of early damage and pressure that we put on. Getting into our second match, we do have the Wool and Dub-Wool start, which is going to be crucial in this matchup since we are up against a water deck, and it is the Unseen Depth deck, no less. So it's going to be an extremely difficult matchup since they are hitting us for a weakness, and they are also able to snipe our evolving Pokemon. So we'll have to see how we get on here, but we do have our Dub-Wool and our Durampa, which are both colourless attackers that we can make use of. My opponent is going to beat us a little bit here with the Apom, using that ability for, absolutely no effect really. We get to put the top card of our deck onto the bottom of our deck, so it's not really going to make a difference. But we have the Dub-Wool here at least that we can evolve into. My opponent got some Pokemon onto their bench with the Pyukumuku there. And we do have the Professor's Research that we can make use of to discard our hand and then draw a fresh set of 7 cards. We'll also put some Pokemon into play here, and we'll go for the Scorbunny as well, why not? Dealing 30 damage to my opponent, and we also reduce damage by 30, but I highly doubt that they'll be doing all that much damage to our active on this following turn. My opponent did get the the Fion here, which is, if you're not familiar, able to switch our active, and they are going to be using it now, switching our active with one of our bench. So I'm going to be promoting the Widow here. We do have the switch in our hand if we want to go back into the Dub-Wool and actually get the knockout, or alternatively we can just attach to the Widow. But I think we want to be putting pressure on our opponent here and getting some knockouts as quickly as possible. My opponent is going to be getting the switch though into the the Prinplup or Prinplup, and attaching energy to it. They have the Pokemon Fan Club. This play kind of tells me that they have the Empoleon in hand already, so I'm definitely going to be taking advantage of this and getting a knockout with our Dub-Wool before my opponent is able to get the Empoleon into play. They did actually search out the Fiona once again, so they can make use of that if they want to, but we're going to be taking this knockout since we have the opportunity, and getting the attachment onto the Dub-Wool, evolving into our Ninetales because there's no reason not to, and bye bye to Prinplup. Even if my opponent has the Empoleon in hand, they're not going to be able to make use of it at this point, and I'm guessing that the other card that they have isn't going to be super useful. Even if they use the Fion on this fallen turn, then we can retreat out, but there we go, my opponent's going to concede. They kind of misplayed there, putting up the Prinplup way too early, and they definitely should have waited until they had the Empoleon set up there. So that was very lucky that we were able to win that matchup, as it's not one that you would typically be able to win. So we'll take those, we'll get into one more game. We are up against another water deck. This time around it's the Blastoise Torrential Cannon theme deck. Oh man, we missed the Great Ball here, which kind of sucks. Hopefully we hit the second one. Sweet, that is much better. So we have the Dub-Wool that we can make use of. Real unfortunate that we've got the Scorbunny start. Definitely would have preferred a Wooloo or a Durampa, or even Widow to an extent, to start us off just like the previous game, but hopefully we can get into the Dub-Wool pretty quickly. We do have the Pokekid, but it's just going to be a case of who can get set up and start taking knockouts quicker. My opponent is going to be looking to just draw cards and build up their hand here, but they actually missed the attachment onto their active, so they're not able to do a whole load of anything. And we do have the Pokekid that we can make use of, so I'm going to be using this to start getting some Pokemon out of the deck. Kind of like Widow, but we'd have to attach and also attach to the active, so probably hold off on that. I think we'll get the Durampa since it is such an efficient attacker, and we can always draw into the Dub-Wool when we have it. And yeah, we'll just see what my opponent has. Hopefully we get a switch off of the hop here, that would be ideal, but I'm not going to be holding my breath as it's very unlikely. My opponent does get the double evolution plus timer ball, getting, oh, double tails, never mind, just the double evolution that they already had in their hand, and they do have the Cynthia to shuffle into their deck as well and draw. But they are set up here. They do have the switch into Farfetch'd, they even have the evolution into Pidgeotto, so they're completely on a roll here, and they should be able to get a Blastoise on the following turn, no problem whatsoever. They have the Golduck set up as well. They just need to start getting that Blastoise into play and be able to attach energy through Blastoise's ability. It shouldn't be too much of an issue for them. Let's go for a hop. Don't get a switch, but we do get a great ball that we can make use of. Getting ourselves the double, and I guess we'll potentially attach to the active. I mean, we do have a 1 retreat cost, so we could attach to the active and start hitting up with our double. We'll go with that, and we have a Pokemon catcher that we can play out, so we'll go with it as well. Unfortunately, we get a Tails on our end, so we're just going to use our double to hit for 30. We do also get to reduce damage by 30, which is nice, but the 30 damage that we're dealing is going to be pretty slow to get knockouts. It's better than nothing though, so we'll take it. And we did unfortunately have to lose out on an energy through retreating, but considering that my opponent does have energy acceleration through the Blastoise, we're going to be behind on energy attachments regardless. And like I said, they are able to get the Blastoise there. Very efficient and great deck that they have for drawing and being consistent, especially through the Giant Squall ability, thinning your deck of all of your energy just so that you have the good cards like the Pokemon and the trainers left. They're going to be able to accelerate 3 energy. Looks like they're all going onto the Golduck, or no, mostly going onto the Golduck, also some onto Blastoise to attack with, but Golduck is definitely going to be their primary attacker here. Can easily attack us for weakness, as well as doing significant damage to other attackers that we have, the colourless attackers. Let's see what we get. We have a bead that's not going to be any use to us, so we just have to go for an attack, dealing 30 damage once again. My opponent could have easily just attached those energies elsewhere, like onto the Blastoise, and retreated and got a knockout on that previous turn. So they could have put a lot more pressure onto us, but looks like they want to continuously build up attackers, which is fair enough, but kind of unnecessary as well. And this is typically what happens when you're playing up against a matchup that you're weak to. Your opponent is just going to completely steamroll you because they're hitting you for weakness, unless you're able to actually get set up and deal damage for knockouts like what happened in the previous game. So just a luck of the draw sometimes on Pokemon online game, but yep, that happens as well. Your opponent just gets double heads and they get any Pokemon out their deck that they want, which is very frustrating when we're having to dead draw, but that is the name of the game. Sometimes they get the double Blastoise down, so they're able to Powerful Squall. Is it Powerful Squall or Giant Squall? It's Powerful Squall on this Blastoise. They're able to use that twice, and now they're also going to be able to attack us. We do get the switch now, but we don't have the energy for Drampa that we can make use of, so we're just going to have to pass it over to my opponent, I think. Definitely would have been good to have another energy to get an attack off there, and my opponent did make it so that we aren't able to use the attack that we're using because they used Amnesia here, and that's the reason why I didn't actually bother attacking. Definitely wasn't forgetting about my attack, I just literally could not attack, so there's no use in doing so, but at least we got that effect of the attack, and it did reduce the damage, so we're not going to get one-hitted unless my opponent retreats here into a Blastoise or switches. Interesting that they're fully evolving into the Pidgeot. Definitely shouldn't be doing that, as you can make use of the Pidgeotto to draw cards every turn. But considering that their deck is already so small, they don't really need to at this point, and it's pretty much going to be game for us. They have the Blastoise that they can just roll through all of our Pokemon with. We do top deck the energy, and sure, I'll switch into our Drampa here and deal 80 damage, why not? And then we also discard the top 2 cards of our deck, discarding our other Drampa. Not that we're going to make use of it at this point. as my opponent can get a one hit on both of our Pokemon, so it's pretty much going to be game for them. Ah well, that is just the draw of the cards. Sometimes here we see another powerful Squall. My opponent has to be out of energy at this point. They have 11 cards in their deck. We've pretty much seen their whole deck with both of those powerful Squalls. And they take their next prize card. Let's see what we draw. We do get the energy, so we can deal a little bit more damage to my opponent, even though it's not relevant really, taking this one knockout. Here we go, we can draw a single prize card, getting ourselves another double, but my opponent has the backup Blastoise that they can use to attack us and win the game here. Bit unfortunate that we came up against two water decks, but we were able to beat one of them at the very least, and we also beat that Charizard, which is one of the best theme decks in my opinion. So hopefully you enjoyed this video regardless, and I gave you a little bit of an insight into the Cinderace deck. I'll see you in the next video.